Hey, this is Carrie from Wrap Your Head Around Silks. This is the Expecting Aerialist podcast, now with the Digital Network. How's it going, guys? Hope you're having an amazing day. Before we get started, lots going on with Wrap Your Head Around Silks. Always, we hit the mat every Monday and Thursday evenings for Roll It Out. Foam rollers and balls to work on our aerial muscles. It has transformed my practice. I get to know you through Zoom, and it's a really great way to maintain yourself. It is affordable, and I get to spend time with you guys. Would love to have you there. Also, I have a beginner to intermediate comprehensive course. If you're one of those people who doesn't really have the time to be in class constantly and you kind of lose parts of your vocabulary, parts of your practice, it's a great way to have a lifetime access to like a whole digital library of all that stuff. So love to have you there. Aerial Rehab, the meant to be the bridge between PT and your aerial class to get you back from pregnancy, surgery, or just being injured. All right, guys. Today we have Julie Hopper. She goes by J-Hop in the aerial world. She is currently in Columbus, Ohio. She's a current squish, just 1 month old on her chest as she is recording. And yeah, she's going to tell us all about her unexpected birth story. All right, let's get started. What would you like to say to the listeners?
You tell her what happened.
Well, this is at the beginning, so the listeners get to find out what happened, okay? Let's make it a surprise. How about that?
And then we tell them.
Oh, we'll tell them afterwards. Okay. All right, guys, let's get started.
I've come to the conclusion, though, that pregnancy brain is not, or like mama brain is not mama. It's just lack of sleep. It's like does not function off of lack of sleep.
Well, I have it too. Like, I have brain fog. I have I don't remember what I walked in a room for. Like, I have all of it. And she's almost 5.
But are you sleeping?
I mean, mostly. It's you know why it is? It's because our brains are always full with a million things, and now you added 1.5 million more things, and now it's like, and then for me at least, I'm sure all parents, like, of course the child is the most important thing, so you have most of your brain focused on the child.
Yeah.
So everything else goes by the wayside. Oops.
Yeah, no, I totally did that yesterday. I have a dog, and she's technically my dog, and my husband came into my room. He's like, that's not cool. Both of her water bowls were bone dry, and I was just like, oh, but she's downstairs because we had to separate the dog from the baby because she was acting. She just had weird things when the baby was in the crib with the bassinet. When we're holding the baby, she's fine, but just to be safe, we separate them. So the dog's downstairs and I'm mostly upstairs, and it's just hard to like I love my dog, but it's like you said, your brain is like so focused on this like little being that like, I was like, oh my God, I let my dog go without water. So, but luckily my husband called me on it. He was on it. So she didn't die. She's fine. But yeah.
Well, I also feel like partners, whether they're men or women, it's like you got to give some grace because it's like this brain is missing at least 25% of everything that's coming at it, you know?
Yeah, I feel that.
I've had this conversation with my partner a lot. I was like, you need to give me a break because or just pick up my slack because there is 100% chance. And, you know, I think it's different if you're like a person who doesn't admit that they messed up. Like, I'll admit every day of the week.
Oh, yeah.
To every single person I'm around. I'm like, I messed up because that is not the most important thing right now.
Yeah.
Boom. That's it. Julie.
Hi.
Dude, okay. Can you please introduce yourself to our audience? Can you, full name, where you live, a little bit about your family, a little bit about your aerial practice, and then I'll jump in.
All right. Well, Julie Hopper Ollison, because my husband's name is Ollison. So I took that name. I finally changed my name like years after we got married. I go by J-Hops in like the aerial world, and I go by Pedrita in the capoeira world. So I have these different nicknames, and let's see. So I guess I'll just start with the aerial stuff. I started doing aerial silks, I think in 2011 at the athletic playground in the Bay Area in Emeryville. And actually Sarah Beebe was actually teaching when I first started there, which was amazing. I listened to her episode recently, which was really beautiful and empowering. And then I did silks like pretty hardcore until like 2019. And then I was just kind of like, oh, like, I never was teaching it or anything, but I was just, doing a show like maybe once a year or something, making a routine. And then 2019, my friend who was also my aerial partner for like a routine, one of my really good friends was like, oh, like we should try pole. And I was like, yeah. And so we like signed up to take pole. And by then I was in LA and she had moved to LA too. So I started doing pole. I kind of transitioned to pole hardcore for like 3 years, maybe. Did some of the PSO competitions. And then when I got pregnant, pole, that hard, cold metal pole just did not feel nearly as good as like a soft silk. So I'm back on silks, like, well, right now postpartum recovering, but I switched completely back to silks when I got pregnant. So it's sort of like my aerial background. And I was a gymnast, and I also do capoeira, which is an Afro-Brazilian martial arts, which has like a lot of acrobatics. So a lot of my aerial silks and pole routines have capoeira movements in them. So that's like my aerial practice. And then my family, it's my husband and me and Ariana, who's currently sleeping, which is great for this podcast. And my mom, we moved to Columbus, Ohio from LA last August for my husband's job. And then we're planning to move back to LA eventually. It's just sort of a short-term position. And my mom lives 10 minutes away, but his parents live in LA. So we're near one grandma, and then we're away from the other grandparents. And that's pretty much it. I don't have any brothers or sisters or anything.
Julie, did I know that you were in Columbus? That's where I grew up-ish.
Oh, yeah. You said that you grew up in where again?
Oh, yeah. Granville, Ohio, which is this tiny town
cool.
east of Columbus. It's like 45 minutes outside.
I haven't been. Is it worthwhile checking out?
It's so idyllic.
Okay.
It's so like, it's called the Village of Granville, and it's got one street through it, and it's got like an ice cream shop. It's like one of those.
And like a church and like a diner.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so idyllic. It's not a great place to grow up if you are not a white kid.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I did have a good childhood there. It's also the home of Denison University, so it's a college town.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Yeah.
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 I've been to like Yellow Springs and Hocking Hills, but I haven't been to Granville yet. So I still have some trekking around to do.
So Columbus, where do you train in Columbus then?
At Studio Rouge, which actually I think you're going to have Kayla on soon, and she teaches there. So I actually picked out the house that we're renting because it's a like 3-minute bike ride away from the studio. And I was like, great, I'm moving away from California, which is where my heart is. I need to be close to like a studio to like be happy. So it's been fairly convenient until, of course, postpartum recovery, where you can't do anything for a while. But yeah, so I trained there. And then there's also another aerial studio close by called Aeriotique. But they have a high ceilings, and they're a little bit further away. And because I was pregnant and not doing crazy drops, I didn't feel the need to train there yet. But eventually, I'll check them out too.
Actually, Columbus is probably a great place to be for this time of her life. Or
I'm not making you happy. I'm making you
your kid's life, right?
Well, she's like 1 month old as of tomorrow. But I feel like it was a really, really great place to be pregnant, actually, because like I love LA. People talk shit about LA, but I love LA. Like, I like the grit. I used to ride my bike everywhere. I didn't deal with traffic. I would like ride my bike to work. I did all my aerial silks and surfing and everything there. But I will say, like, I was a little bit more turned up there. Like when you're in like a big city, it's like you're more like go, go, go and wound up. And like here it's just like very low stress, peaceful, like calm. And I feel like for being pregnant, it's good to like be chill. And I feel like I also didn't really have too many friends here. Like I made some, but in a way it was good because I just kind of like drew inward and was like just chill. So I wasn't feeling the need of like going here and there all the time. So I guess it was a good place to be pregnant. And the place I gave birth at, Ohio State University, they have a midwifery group. So you can choose between OBGYN or midwives. And I chose a midwife group, and if my birth had gone normal, I would have been able to like do like a water birth. And that was like, I wanted a natural birth, no epidural, midwives, all that stuff, which none of that happened. But I was like, oh, well, this is great. I have this great hospital here where like I don't have that in LA. Like I can have this like birth of my dreams here, and totally did not happen. But I guess theoretically speaking, it could have been a good place to give birth.
Okay, that's what we're getting into, J-Hop. I love that. That's your name.
Yeah.
So your squish is so fresh.
Yeah.
And it's your first squish.
Yeah.
I'm a squishy.
You're squishy, Lucy.
Squishy.
You're squishy too. Let me see just a picture.
I'm a big squishy. I only like being loved.
Of course you love being loved. Let me give you a huggy, okay?
I don't like.
You don't like to be put down either, huh?
Okay, listen, but other people have to talk to me. It's called a podcast.
This girl doesn't have.
You hint at the fact that it did not go as planned with this little squish you have on your chest right now. So, can you tell us what the plan was and then what the plan ended up?
Yeah, so the plan was to do like all natural, no epidural, but still in a hospital. That way, like if something bad happened, to me or the baby, we still had like all the benefits of being right then and there at the hospital. But they had midwives, which were supposed to like support, like more natural birthing and like less like, motive to induce you too early and like all that stuff. And like I actually was lucky, my aunt and uncle offered to hire a doula for me. So they gave us money for a doula. And so we had a doula who was amazing, but like I didn't even get to use her, completely because, I'll get to that point. But like, she was teaching us all these like pain coping techniques, because the idea is I was like, I don't want an epidural. I want to feel the pain, which I know some people are like, oh, you're crazy. But like, I felt like, feeling your child coming into the world and like just working with the pain and all that kind of stuff. I was like wanting to be ready for it. And then I was, I think at one point, I guess 36 weeks was like an interesting appointment because I had that non-stress test. Because starting, if you're my age, so I'm 39 now. I just turned 39 right before she was born. But if you're over the age of 35, they make you have these like regular tests after 36 weeks to look at the baby's heart rate and the kicks and all this stuff. And I had one of those tests done, and the midwife was like, oh, like, the decelerations are, they're, I forget what she said, they're like lagging or something after the contractions. And she's like, you guys might have to go to the hospital like tonight. You might end up having a baby tonight. So I went from like 36 weeks going to the hospital, and like then they did a longer check and they're like, everything's fine. Sometimes the non-stress tests have technical like irregularities where it's not you, it's just like the machine. They're like, everything should be fine. I was like, well, how am I supposed to like go home now that like this scare and like think that everything's okay? So that was kind of like very anxiety producing, because I was just worried about like, oh, is she going to be okay? What's going on? But then after like a couple more appointments of like everything is going fine, I started to like have more confidence. And then I think around like 39 weeks, we had to schedule like an induction for like worst case scenario. If you don't have this baby by 41 weeks, or like close to 41 weeks, we need to induce you. So my due date was June 13th, and the induction was scheduled for the 20th. And so Jared, my husband, and I were like talking about it, and we were still actually debating about even showing up to the induction, because we're sort of like, oh, the baby should come when the baby wants to come. Like my mom had me when she was 39 years old too, and I was 2 weeks late. So she had me when she was 42 weeks pregnant. And she had to have a C-section too, but not because of anything with the baby, more so like supposedly her pelvic opening or something. But so I sort of was like on the fence of the induction. Then, all these dates just go and they go by, you have an appointment. And I was like, oh, well, I'll do a membrane sweep, at my next appointment. But then I was 0 centimeters dilated. And so they couldn't even do a sweep. And so then you're just like watching the days go by. And I wasn't even like in a hurry for her to come. I was just sort of like, I really don't want to be induced. And so I was trying all the things like the dates, the raspberry tea, like the walking, sex, like all that stuff, like just trying to like naturally get her to come. And then I think it was on my appointment on the 12th, the day before it's due. They're like, well, we want you to come in again on the 18th just because the 20th is too long to go without seeing you. The 20th was my induction date. So I went in on the 20th. I do a non-stress test and that's fine. But then she measured me and she's like, oh, you're measuring like you're 39 weeks, even though you're, almost 41 weeks. She's like, I want you to come back this afternoon to check your amniotic fluid and check the baby. And I was like, okay. And granted, I had already had the amniotic fluid checked the week before and everything was normal. So I was just like, I didn't even tell my husband to come to the appointment. I was like, oh, it'll be fine. Like, whatever. And so I go to the appointment and the amniotic fluid was fine. But then they start doing all these measurements. And I was like, oh, like, what are you guys doing? They're like, oh, we're measuring baby size. I was like, okay, because I didn't know they were going to do that. And then they come back because they had to do some hand calculations. They come back like 20 minutes later and she's like pretty serious. Like she looked really serious. And I was like, and she started kind of talking about things. I was like, wait, before you go any further, can I put my husband on three-way? So I had my husband on the phone on speaker and she was talking about how the baby was like under the 5 percentile for like the head size or something, or the stomach size, and in the less than 1 percentile for the weight or something like that. And I sort of was like, okay, like I'm a small person. Like I was also a small baby. Like, is that really that big of a problem? But I guess like, cause the baby was in the 25th percentile in January during my like 18th or 21 week appointment. That was what was concerning, is they deemed that like the fetal growth restriction, that the baby was no longer like thriving in the uterus. It needs to like get out. Like at this point, the baby's just doing bad, is what they kind of were like alluding to. So they wanted me to go in like that night for an induction instead of the 20th. And so I was sort of like, oh shit. Like I was like, well, like at this point, I'm definitely going to show up for the 20th. Like I'll definitely go in on the 20th, but I like asked the OBGYN because they're the ones that do the ultrasounds. I was like, I mean, how critical is it if I come in tonight versus 2 days from now? Like it doesn't, and she's like, well, the baby's heart rate is doing well today. I can't like guarantee it's going to be doing well in 2 days from now. And I was like, oh shit. And like this whole pregnancy, like I've had some anxiety about like stillbirth and like that kind of thing. And so of course, like that was like my fear. And I was just like, okay. So I talked it over with my husband and we decided to go in that night. We went in like really late. I went for my last swim. I felt like I was going to prison, like get my last in of everything before I like had this thing, whatever, like whatever's going to happen, I'm going to get my last swim in. I'm going to like make my lactation cookies. I'm going to like do anything I want to do. So we get there at like 11 p.m. and I had already done research on induction and I already decided like if I'm going to be induced, I'm going to do it like my way. So like I refused misoprostol, which is like a cervical ripening drug that acts in 4 hours because it can cause fetal distress. It's not FDA approved for cervical ripening. It's FDA approved for other things. And I instead requested dinoprostone, which is FDA approved for cervical ripening, but it takes 12 hours to work. And so I said, well, I don't want misoprostol, but I'll take dinoprostone. So they already knew that when I got there. So they already knew that like it was going to be a slow process to get my cervix, because my cervix was still 0 centimeters dilated. So we get there and the midwife was like, oh, well, I want to check you in 4 hours from now. And I was like, that's in the middle of the night. I want to get my sleep. If I'm going to be laboring, I want to make sure I have a good sleep. I was like, can't you just check me in the morning? And she wasn't that happy about it, but they did. And so 8 hours after I took the drug, I was still 0 centimeters. And they're like, started talking about like starting Pitocin and stuff. But like both my husband and I were like, why would we do that if I'm 0 centimeters? So we were just walking around the hospital and stuff. And I was wearing like, I had to be continuously monitored. So I was wearing those like cord, the continuous monitoring cords that you have to hook up, but you can walk around with them. But at one point, the nurse came into the room and she's like, I need you to lay down. I need to hook you up to the wall unit. The baby's heart is doing some, we don't like what the baby's heart's doing. We want to give you IV fluids and see if that helps. I was like, okay. But granted, because I already had that faulty test at 36 weeks for the non-stress test, I kind of like didn't trust these machines that much. I was sort of like, well, it could just be like a technical error. So I wasn't that worried. And they gave me IV fluids for an hour. And then they had me hooked up to the wall unit, so I couldn't move like more than 5 feet. And then they were like, okay, the baby's heart's better now, so you're okay, but we want you to stay on the wall unit because the connection's better. So then I could no longer like walk around like wherever I wanted. I was like basically 5 feet mobile from the wall. So every time I had to use the bathroom, I'd have to call the nurse. So then I was like hooked up to this unit, and they came in at 12 hours to check me, and I was still 0 centimeters dilated. So they took the dinoprostone, the Cervidil, out of my cervix because it was done. Like 12 hours is the amount of time it takes to work. And I guess my cervix was soft, but it wasn't opened. And so then they were like, okay, well, we want you to start Pitocin. And I was like, oh, can I just try some nipple stimulation and like bouncing on the ball first? Because that will promote oxytocin naturally. They're like, yeah, we can give you like an hour to do that. So that was like a kind of like the closest I got to laboring, is my husband was DJing music and I was like on this bouncy ball trying to stimulate my nipples to produce my own oxytocin, trying to get like some contractions going. And at the most I had like period like cramping. But it wasn't like anything like intense at all. And so then I'm on this bouncy ball. We're just having like a decent time, just listening to music, doing our things. And then I was like, oh, I have to take a shit. So I called the nurse to come in. And then the nurse comes in with a midwife. And I was like, that's weird. Like usually the nurse will just come, not the midwife too. But the nurse comes in and she's like, you need to lay down. We need to like monitor the heart. The heart's decelerating. And I was like, okay. I was like, but can I go to the bathroom first? Like I really have to take a shit. And she's like, no. And so then 2 seconds later, 2 more people rush into the room. It's the anesthesiologist who had already talked to in the morning. I guess she has to tell everyone about like worst case scenario. If you need a C-section, here's what's going to happen. So I'd already met her and she'd already told me the 2 types of C-sections that happen. Like one is like emergency. You have to be like intubated and like you're like out for 6 hours. You can't even hold your baby. Like you're not awake. And your partner can't even be in the surgery room with you, I guess because they don't have time to do the spinal. And then the other type of C-section can still be an emergency C-section, but it's like a little bit more time that you have. They can do the spinal and your partner can be in the room with you and you're awake the whole time. And when the baby comes out, if everything's normal, you can do skin to skin, like pretty much within 5 minutes of the baby's being taken out of you while they're like sewing you up on the other side. So anyhow, so these 2 anesthesiologists come into the room. I was like, okay. And then like 2 seconds after that, 6 more people come into the room and they're all wearing scrubs and they all start like taking my clothes off. And they're like, we need to put a gown on you. You need to lay down. We need to get you the OR like ASAP. And I was like, what? And I just started like I started shaking uncontrollably. And like, I don't know if it got cold or hot, but like I definitely like temperatures were changing. I think I was going into shock. And then like they were wheeling me away and I saw my husband like left behind and I was like, oh shit, like this is the type A C-section where like, it's like, and so I was like, oh my God. And then I was like, I guess in my head, I was like, okay, I need to be calm for Ariana, the baby. I was like, I need to just like breathe. So I just started trying to focus on like the ocean waves and just like trying to take really deep breaths. And then by that time I was already in the OR and they were already like transferring me to like the operating bed, but they still had me hooked up. And that's when like, it was really weird because you could tell like half of the surgical team was like, they wanted to go like now, like cut me open, like, let's do this, like put her under now. And the other half of the team was like, no, like let's watch the heart rate. Like the baby's heart rate. Mine was fine. Like, you know, the deceleration seemed like they're like calming down a bit more. And like someone else would be like, there's another one. And someone would be like, yeah, but it's not as low as before. And then someone would be like, there's another one. They're like, yeah, but they're being spaced out more. Like it was weird. Like half the team was more like risk adverse, like let's get this baby out ASAP. And the other half of the team was sort of like, let's like try to be calm about this and see like if we can be like more strategic and like maybe do the other type of C-section if possible. So finally the baby's heart rate gets to a point where like the whole team is like, okay, like it's not stable, but it was stable enough to where like they were like, you know, we could do a spinal instead of the other version. And so someone's like, okay, can someone get her husband? And I guess my husband he was already in the hallway, but he wasn't like allowed in yet. So they grabbed him. He was already scrubbed up and everything. And they're like, you guys have a decision to make. They're like, you could either do like the C-section with like a spinal. And then like, you know, that way Jared can be here and you can like hold your baby right away and like be awake during the whole thing, blah, blah, blah. They're like, or you can try to labor. But we don't recommend it. We're like, because, you know, and if that happens, if the baby decelerates again, you probably have to have like, you know, a C-section, but you won't have time for the spinal. So I was very much on like right away, sort of like, let's just do the C-section in like a controlled manner instead of like trying to labor, because I was 0 centimeters dilated. Like if I had been 5 or 7 centimeters dilated, I think I would have been like, oh, like let's try to labor. But I even asked the doctor, I was just like, how much time do you think it would take? We're like, oh, like minimum 12 hours, but probably like 24 or more hours. And we don't think the baby's going to be able to like survive labor. And Jared, my husband, we both do data stuff. He's a microbiologist and I'm like wasn't a ecologist, now I'm a data scientist. So he was asking like the person looking at the monitor all these questions and looking at the monitor, and the guy was showing him things. And I sort of like looked at the search and I was like, do we have time for this? And she's like, yeah, it's okay, you know. So my husband was asking all these questions, which is good. And then he kind of was like, well, you know, what do you want to do? And I didn't want to take the chance of like, you know, not being able to be awake during when she was birthed and like not being able to hold her, not having my partner in the room. And I didn't want to take the chance of having a stillbirth. So I was just like, let's just do this. This is not the plan at all. You know, like I never even wanted an epidural. So yeah, he left the room. I got the spinal, which actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. But I did hate the actual effect of the spinal, which is like where you go numb and tingling. And I was like, this is why I didn't want this. Like, it just felt so bad to be like paralyzed. And then, yeah, so then they took her out within almost like 10 minutes after they started like cutting me open. It felt like it was super fast. And then I heard her cry and I just started crying because I was like very relieved she was okay. And my husband, like, I think he brought her over to me or the doctor brought her over to me. And then we did skin to skin, and like right away she started to root for like my breast and she started to try to feed, which was like really beautiful. But then on the other side of this curtain, like, right, like they were like stitching me back up, and like I think my husband was like looking over at what they were doing. He took some photos and I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever be ready to see those photos. But I did tell them before they cut me open, I was like, I'm an athlete and I do like aerial soaks and acrobatics and like please be careful. I was like, job. I was like, I really want to be able to like flip again, you know, and like I'm sure they do their best job on everybody, but I was just like, you guys don't understand. I don't need to just walk and swim again. Like I need to be able to do flips again. So but yeah, so then, you know, and she was fine. I guess her APGAR score was like a 9 or 10 or whatever. I think it's out of 10. It was like an 8 or a 9. And she didn't have to go to the NICU at all. And she gained weight pretty fast because she was a great latcher and I had enough supply. So that was good. It's like breastfeeding has been good, except she feeds all the time. But she's gaining weight and she's super healthy. And yeah, at the end of the day, I feel like I would have made the same decision just because like I have a healthy baby, but it was not the birth that I was planning on.
Yeah, mine neither. Bean just asked me if babies come from cabbages. I told her they come from mummies. She's like, no, they come from cabbages.
That's funny. Yeah, I heard you had a C-section too. So really interested in your like rehab story and stuff.
Basically, it's like if I would have gone back, I would have. I didn't really understand the whole like breathing techniques beforehand. Like I would have been doing that stuff right after the C-section, like scar sealed up nicely. I would have been doing all that stuff, but
Okay, point taken. I need to start those.
But having said that, I had pretty, I don't know if there's a pretty bad or kind of bad, whatever, postpartum anxiety. And it,
Okay, yeah.
like, I couldn't do anything. I could only, like, take care of
Worry.
myself and take care of her and then worry. Yeah.
Yeah. What were you worried about? Like, were you worried about SIDS and stuff like that a lot?
It started with SIDS.
Yeah.
Bean doesn't sleep by herself. Never has. Never has. I couldn't put her down in a bassinet. So if I would have followed the SIDS guidelines to the T, I would have been in a hospital from
Yeah.
turning into a
Yeah.
crazy person.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that.
So, and they don't have like all the SIDS guidelines, it doesn't have an answer for those moms and dads.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no answer for those people. It's just like you have to take a risk.
Yeah.
And so we try to mitigate the risk. I also had somebody who came on the podcast and said that her and her husband never slept when she slept.
Right. Right.
And that only works if you have a village
yeah.
or if your husband and you are 100% home the whole time, right?
Right.
Which is not the case. It wasn't. Asa went back to work almost immediately.
Yeah.
So we mitigated the risk, but even now she sleeps with us. She co-sleeps with us most of the time.
How did you mitigate the risk? Did you sleep on a separate mattress with like no covers kind of thing, or?
We had like 2 beds set up in our place at that time because also the way the air conditioning and the heat came out, it like.
That's how ours is. It's
Yeah,
either really cold
yeah.
or really hot. Yeah.
Yes. And it would affect her sleep. So we had a futon in the other room that was really firm. And I would, when Asa went to work, and we still needed to sleep, I would lay on my side and I would take yoga blocks and block her into a spot.
Yeah.
Like I would put a yoga block between her and I
Yeah.
and a yoga block behind her so that she was on her side. She wanted to be
Yeah.
on her side.
Yeah.
And then she also couldn't sleep without me touching her. So I had my arm underneath her head.
Oh, yeah.
And then I would just we did a spoon, but with structure.
Yeah.
And I would still wake up every like half an hour and complete
Oh, gosh. Panic.
what's the word? Just panic. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I get that. It's really hard. I'm lucky that my husband works like primarily remote. We have flexible schedules and I'm completely on leave. So I pretty much spend all night up with her. I'll fall asleep by accident sometimes in the nursing chair, which is not good, but it happens like a little bit for like a 30-minute whatever. And then my husband will take her because I pump enough for a bottle for him. He'll take her from like 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. until like 12 p.m. So I can get like about 6 hours of sleep in that window. So I sleep from like 5 or 6 a.m. till like 12 p.m. That's like my like sleeping window, which is weird. And then I'm up all night with her pretty much while he's getting some sleep. But of course he wakes up sometimes when she cries because we have a co-sleeper next to the bed. So it's like a bassinet, but it has like a lower side next to the bed. And we try to put her in that, but like at best she'll stay asleep in there for like maybe an hour. And then sometimes I have like taken her to the bed to nurse her. And there have been a couple of times where like last night I like woke up and she was next to me. I'm like, oh, I was like, how did that happen? Because I fell asleep like while nursing her, which is like not good. But like you say, you're so exhausted that like, it's like really hard to to just regulate everything. But I'm trying to be more intentional about it. And like, even my husband was like, yeah, like if we're like intentional about go sleeping and set up all the safety standards, then maybe it's okay. But like, we can't be like falling asleep willy nilly. And I'm like, I know, like that was terrible. So like, yeah, it's so hard when you're so exhausted. But yeah, for now, I get most of my sleep in those morning hours.
Oh man, it's just such a, I mean, it's just such a rough time. And it's like, some people have like a lot of family members. But even when my mom was like visiting, it helped because she bridged the gap on my sleep. But at night, still, this bean did not want to be on anything
Yeah,
but me.
at night is when she turns into like a little like gremlin, and she like gets more fussy at night too. Like I think she has more gas problems and reflux problems at nighttime than during the daytime. But yeah, they sound sort of similar. She also like during the day, the only way I can like do anything really is by having her in the carrier. But then I'm limited by what I can do with her in the carrier. But yeah.
Oh
no,
my goodness. Well, I'm really happy for you. How does your C-section scar feel right now?
It feels pretty good actually. In fact, I like called the midwives to like I think I have an appointment with them next week because I was like, I want an earlier appointment because I want to be cleared for exercise like sooner. And like obviously I'm not gonna go back to aerial silks right away. I'm gonna do like swimming, but I want to go swimming again. Like I want to get in a pool. It's summertime. And so like soon can I get back in the pool, And like I've been walking every day with her. The first week was terrible. The first week
Is so bad.
It was so bad. Like I couldn't even nurse without being in pain because like you're like kind of hunched over nursing or whatever.
Yeah.
And even with all the pillows, I was still in pain. And then like the first week, like even the first 2 weeks, I couldn't really get out of bed very well. Like I had to do this weird like scoot thing with like my elbows to get off the bed. And like if she was in the bassinet, I couldn't roll over to get her. I couldn't twist or bend or do any of that stuff. So now all that stuff is like a lot better. But like, yeah, the first week my husband was like cooking and cleaning and like bringing me food upstairs and like doing everything. It was like crazy. He went back to work after like about, I think 2 weeks, but he's still super helpful, like doing all the laundry and like doing a lot of the cooking. But like now I can go downstairs and make my own granola and yogurt. So I'm not as helpless as I was especially the first week, but the first 2 weeks were tough. Yeah, now I'm like walking. I'm trying to stretch already in the mornings. I'm trying to like, do my splits and stuff and whatever. Whenever I have a little bit of time where she's not on me, I try to like get my stretches in. Trying to do some like bicep curls too, because those don't affect my core. So I'm trying to do whatever I can do to like maintain my strength. Like lost weight really quickly because of breastfeeding, but I feel like my muscles are sort of like dissolving right now. So I'm just like, no.
I am so excited for you. Also, it like that time was so rough for me. That whole 3 months after the baby was born.
The whole 3 months, but like not because of the C-section, but because of like the baby too, like all
because that she wouldn't sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. So she didn't start sleeping until 3 months.
No, at 3 months, my parents came, and I caught up on sleep, and then I couldn't handle it.
Okay. Yeah.
I was getting to a breaking point because I was like,
I feel that. Yeah.
I was like, I think I'm going crazy.
Yeah. I definitely like, I would never shake my baby. I'm just saying I could see now how some people get to that point because you're so exhausted and your patience is so like worn down.
Yeah.
That like it's hard to have control over everything. But like, I'm definitely not at that point, would not do that. But I'm just saying it makes me like empathize a little bit with like how someone could get there if you're completely exhausted. Like it's terrible. It's, especially the times where they're like completely fussing. You've tried everything. You've tried feeding, you've tried changing the diaper, you've tried changing the clothes if they were too hot or too cold, you've tried burping them, you've tried like rubbing them and holding them and rocking them, all the things. You're just like, what are you doing?
I appreciate you taking the time out right now because it is crazy time.
No, and I'm excited you're gonna have Kayla on too, because she was my pregnancy aerial teacher. So like I was doing aerial silks up until like 38 weeks, and then I was still playing around at my 40th week. But I was taking class with Kayla like every week, and so it was nice to have someone to look up to that was like already pregnant and doing stuff. And she'd be like, "You could do this, try this," and I was like, "Cool, I trust you." So I'm excited you'll get to talk to her too.
Yay. Okay, well, I'm going to let you go and deal with this, deal with your life, but I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye, Bean. Bye, guys.
My listeners, if you would honor me with a 5-star rating and review, I would appreciate it forever. It is the hardest thing about being a podcaster is to get your podcast out to the people who want to listen. So the best way to do that is to have a good star rating and just ride that algorithm. So I really appreciate if you guys would just open the Apple app and leave me a review. It makes such a difference. I appreciate you. I also have Greener Grass with Digident Podcasts with my friend Kelly McVeigh. If you want to hear my voice twice a week, it's there for you. It's light, it's heartfelt, and we bring on some really amazing guests. All right, my friends, over and out. This is Carrie from Wrap Your Head Around Silks. This is The Expecting Aerialist.